The country demands strong leadership of this body, and we must not waver. My office is going to be known for trust and transparency and accountability. Our system of government is not a perfect system. It's got a lot of challenges, but it is still the best one in the world, and we have an opportunity to preserve it.
Well, after 3 chaotic weeks on Capitol Hill, Americans finally have a new House Speaker. Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson won the gavel Wednesday. He is now second in line to the presidency after the vice president and will have a critical role in shaping U.S. policy. Republicans elected him unanimously, but he wasn't the party's first choice, or second, or third for that matter. 3 weeks ago, a group of hardline conservatives forced Kevin McCarthy out of the speakership. Steve Scalise, the number 2 House Republican, initially led the race to replace McCarthy. He dropped out days later. Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan was next, but he also failed to win over his own party. Then there was Tom Emmer, the number 3 House Republican, won the nomination Tuesday, just to withdraw 4 hours later. Well, that brings us to Mike Johnson, who is now one of the most powerful people in Washington. CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion joins me now. I think the question many of us want to know, who are just finding out, I'm sure they know by now, but who is Mike Johnson? What does he stand for?
Yeah, well, it is going to take some time for America to be introduced to Mike Johnson. I mean, keep in mind, he was relatively unknown up to this point. Now he's been catapulted to second in line to the presidency, but he is a congressman from Louisiana, 51 years old, a constitutional lawyer, former conservative talk show host. He also is now in his 4th term in Congress. He did vote to decertify the 2020 election, spearheading an amicus brief in a Texas lawsuit to overturn the election results, and he has shifted his stance a bit on Ukraine. It was something that he was supportive of generally, but most recently he's voted against more funding, although Jerica tonight he said he would support additional aid to Ukraine, but with conditions.
Why do you think Johnson was able to get those votes, but the others couldn't?
You know, it's a question I put to him, but in the rush of the scrum, he did not respond, but part of it, I think, is that he was a fresh face, which, quite frankly, some in the Republican conference had been clamoring for to a certain extent. That's why Tom Emmer and Steve Scalise had some difficulty, especially after McCarthy was ousted, because keep in mind, Scalise was number 2 to McCarthy, Emmer number 3. So, some members felt like they shouldn't get a promotion and be bumped one position up. So that was some of the resistance, particularly among some of those hardliners. And then, of course, in terms of Jim Jordan, some of it was his stance, his closeness to the former president. Now, granted, Mike Johnson was backed by the former president, who even congratulated Mike Johnson today. But he comes with a bit less baggage as some of the other candidates. And quite frankly, just the frustration was really reaching exasperation levels as far as having this situation unresolved without a speaker, and many members just felt they had to hunker down and pick someone.
Yeah, and they finally did. Now that the House is open, what's on the agenda? What can we expect?
Yeah, so a lot has been stalled over these past 3 weeks. The House did move forward with a resolution late today condemning Hamas and the attack against Israel. But going forward, a big question will be what will happen with President Biden's foreign aid package of over $100 billion. Of course, that is supposed to include funding for Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, the U.S.-Mexico border. But as we mentioned, in terms of Speaker Johnson, his stance has shifted a bit on Ukraine, and while he says he supports additional assistance with conditions, it will be interesting to see if he keeps that package intact or tries to parse out that support for Ukraine, which could potentially happen given some members of the conference support Israel, but don't necessarily want to approve more funding for Ukraine at this time. So that could be a pretty thorny issue. And of course, you've got the issue of government funding. It is due to run out at the middle of November. Johnson has made clear he wants to move aggressively with respect to some of these longer terms appropriation bills to try to fund the government on a longer term basis. But that will be a pretty heavy lift to try to get that done by November. So whether they do another temporary extension also remains to be seen.
Yeah, a lot of work there for Mike Johnson. I'm sure a month ago he wasn't thinking he would be the House Speaker, and now he is. Nikole Killion on Capitol Hill, thank you.
You bet.